Wait,
But we don't
guess
have
what?
to have it figured out.
Guess what he
What?
said?
That's what
No,
they
not
say.
again.
But sometimes it's like
I
there's
know.
so much free will.
But how
It's okay,
does a
take it easy.
20-year-old
I
We
know,
travel
life
so
is
much,
hard.
But then we have
It's
broke,
so
we don't
hard.
have
We have to
money.
figure so many things out. Money, marriage.
No, I don't understand my friend.
Yeah, sometimes it's just so confusing.
I love you.
Having like a session here right now.
Or maybe it's just conversations over coffee. I hate confronting
Hot
people.
chocolates. I would love a hot chocolate right now.
Do you want to start a podcast?
Let's do it. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 20s in Transition podcast. We're your hosts, Anusha Khannan and
Likita Gopinath. And this episode is kind of unplanned because if you've actually heard our intro, I would have said that you shouldn't have it all figured out. So Anush and I were having a conversation about, perfectionism and how we have this pressure from nowhere to have it all figured out before our 30s. I don't know where it came from, but yeah, we thought we'll make an episode about it, and that's what this episode is about.
yeah, I 100% agree with that. You know, we have this tendency of like we need to have it all figured out, but I think personal growth happens at your own pace. You cannot, there is no timeline, there is no way you can tell yourself like, oh, you know what, by the time I turn 23, I'm going to have this part of my life figured out, because it does not turn out that way. It just never does. We've crossed 23, we understand how that feels. But when we were 18, we felt like 23, I will find the man of my life and I'll be married. I'll have kids by the time I'm 25. That timeline seems so stupid to me right now because I cannot even see the timeline. I cannot even see it anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I think each individual has their own revelations it can be during your 20s or 30s, your 40s, 50s, even at different points in their life. And, certain circumstances or experiences that they would have had might have forced them to see things differently in their life, or they would have learned how to deal with a certain situation. And as a result, learn something about themselves. So it's very subjective and it's quite impossible to have the same timeline as another person or compare yourself to someone else, which is what we're getting to. So I'll give you an example. You meet someone and they completely change your perspective in life, or for example, the loss of a loved one made you think how you should cherish small moments in life and celebrate them. So all of these small experiences will push you to grow some part of you. So it's very subjective, like I was saying. And for me personally, traveling alone has changed my life for the better. It's made me a better person. So individual experiences and circumstances like this push you to grow in a certain manner. So it's impossible to have like the same pace of growth as someone else.
Yeah. I mean, if you go back into like the origins of this, life expectancy was significantly lower in like the olden days than it is today. And when you're faced with a shorter life expectancy, shorter lifespan, it's very natural for people to feel like, okay, I'm gonna die by the time I'm 30. I need to have it all figured out. But it's not the case now. We have higher life expectancies and we have a lot of time to figure stuff out. So there is no urgency in that place. And I also think with like there's advancement, right? Like healthcare, how the global conditions are, and how there's a shift in how societal expectations have changed for achievements. Because I don't think we see like 18-year-olds making $1 million and we're 24 and we don't have $1 million. But I don't think it's about
Not yet.
sure. Yes. Guys, go share this podcast. Make us millionaires.
Yeah, please do that. And to take it from there, I think, first of all, where did this idea even come from? The need to have it figured out before you're 30. Who said that we have to have it all figured out before 30? It is something that we Gen Z people brought it on ourselves, I feel like. And it is almost impossible to have it all figured out before your midlife. What, 30 is your midlife, I think, if we're living until 60, or maybe. They call it midlife crisis for a reason, right? Because you're most definitely, you cannot have it all figured out by then it won't be called like a midlife crisis. So but even then, let's look at the other side of this. Let's say you have it all figured out by 30. Now what? Like, what's left of life now? How boring is the rest of your life going to be? Like, where's the fun in that, says the person who would like to have it all figured out by 30. But anyway.
But the thing is, see, I have a 7-year-old grandmother who still is learning stuff about herself. For me to see that, I'm like, I have not even started. Like, my journey has not even begun yet. And for me to think that, cool, I have a podcast with my friend. I am working. I am beautiful. This stuff doesn't matter. Like, there's so many things to learn. There are so many things to see. There are so many people to meet. And I also think, like, scientifically, if you look at, I know that Jay Shetty talked about it on his podcast, like about the prefrontal cortex and how it develops after you're 25. But one thing is with neuroplasticity, your brain's like constantly learning and it's constantly improving. So there is no like, I've heard a lot of people tell me that, this person is over 40. Don't try to change them. That's not how it works. You can change at any age. You can change, you can learn at any age. You can make major life decisions at any age. It just doesn't make sense to make it when you're young because you don't have all the information that you need to make those decisions. But as you keep growing older, you gather a lot of information. So that's why they say, like, when you're young and when you fall in love, they say, like, oh, it's puppy love. And for us at that age, we get really frustrated because, like, we know what we feel. You don't tell us what we feel. But when we grow older, we look back, we're like, we were stupid. I'm stupid. I'm stupid. Or like Charles Leclerc there. We're like, yeah, we were stupid. Like, what the hell were you thinking, Anusha? What the hell were you thinking, Nikita? But I think as you grow older, you understand a lot about yourself. You understand about people, how you perceive situations. And that happens because your neural pathways are being trained to think better. And your prefrontal cortex, your frontal cortex is like developing as you grow older. And that really helps you make these decisions. So I think you don't actually have to have it all figured out by before you turn 30. Like, there's still a lot of biological stuff happening within us. So calm down, chill.
Yeah, this is actually a side note to both of us. This is not just putting it out there.
Yeah, we're actually talking to ourselves right now.
Yeah, and this whole thing about finding your purpose, I went on my rant last episode. If you know, you know. Go listen to it if you haven't, or don't. Your choice. But yeah, it's this pressure of finding your purpose. And recently, I saw a reel that said how to find your purpose. You need to know who you are. So basically, to know who you are, it's a long journey, right? It's not a matter of a day or two, a month or two. It's a few years. That experience of learning about yourself, introspection, why you react the way you react, what you like, what you don't like, what you truly enjoy doing. So the more you learn about yourself, the more you're like chipping away at, almost trying to find out what your purpose in life is. So this is actually a lecture to myself. Like I'm actually talking to myself, but this reel on Instagram that I saw, like, literally almost opened my eyes. I'm like, wow, to know my purpose, I need to learn better about myself. How obvious is that? But at the same time, eye opening.
Yeah, even when we feel like we don't have a purpose, when we feel like we don't have it all figured out, we're getting so stressed, which is not good for our mental health, like overall well-being. We just like I've had days where I felt like I don't want to get out of my bed because I don't seem to have stuff figured out like the other people do. And I think that's such a bad routine to get into, such a bad mindset to get into, rather than thinking, you know what, when my time comes, I'll figure it out. Because to be completely transparent, 4 years of engineering college, I talked about in the last episode too, like how I didn't want to be in that place. I always felt like I was out of place. I always felt like people next to me, my friends and my classmates, they had it all figured out. They knew what they were heading towards, and I didn't. But the one good thing is, I think it has a lot to do with parenting as well. My parents, they brought me up in a way where they never made me think that I couldn't do something I wanted to. So I had this mindset of, I'll figure it out. It's fine. But internally, of course, I ask myself questions like, do you actually think we'll figure it out? Like, what if you don't? What if you're a failure? But I think we will. Like, look at where I am now. Like, I'm not saying I figured it out, but I'm better than what I was feeling at that time. I'm better than who I thought I was going to be. It's just for you to believe in yourself and think, you know what? At some point, all of this is going to make sense. Like you said in the last episode, these dots are going to connect and we're all going to figure out what we want to do. It's just a matter of being patient.
Yeah, and that point about you comparing yourself to others. So I think comparing yourself with someone else is inevitable. Like it happens almost on a daily with everybody, I feel like. And we've all done it at some point in our life, or we still do it when it comes to some things. It can be about looks, wealth, success, career, etc. And also sometimes, have you come across the fact that, we are told to compare ourselves to someone who isn't doing as well as us? Sometimes our parents say, look at the kids, they don't have a family or a place to call home, no education. It's basically to remind ourselves about how blessed we are. Like, you're way better off than half of the young population. But which is true, it humbles you. But at the same time, I think you should know where to draw a line so you don't settle for less. And coming back to the other form of comparison, where you compare to someone who's way better off than you, we should often remind ourselves that like I said previously, every individual has their own upbringing, family dynamics, which is the biggest reason why we are who we are. And like I said in the beginning, different circumstances shape you, how you become, and the decisions that you made that has led to this day. So the bottom line is actually, comparing yourself to someone else makes absolutely zero sense.
Yeah.
Because you're like two different individuals, and you can't even compare twins because they even have different experiences, right?
Yeah,
So
I mean,
that's
I read this quote where it was like, I think it could be a romantic one, but I think it applies to everything, where it was like, you cannot find the same person in the same person twice. That is so profound because I have felt this,
damn.
like just think about this. When you fight with your friend, you take some time apart. When you come back, you're not the same people anymore. It is what it is. It's not like a significant change, but you can feel the shift in the energy. I have felt it so many times. Like the smallest of things. You and I were not the same people that we were when we initially met. We were, 17 and 18. We're not the same people anymore. We have different ways of talking, different ways of thinking. But I also think when comparing yourself to another person, Naval Ravikant said this the best way. He said, would you trade 24 hours with a person's life? Then you can be jealous of them. You should trade everything, your family, your friends, the way you think, the love you have for some people. If you can trade all of those things, then be jealous of someone. And I don't think any of us would want to do that. There are parts of ourselves that make us who we are. And to think that, oh, this person has it better than me, that's because they had multiple stepping stones that led them to that place. You have to go on your path. You take your own road and do what makes sense to you, because what made sense to them might not make sense to you. And I also think when you constantly compare yourself with someone, you're doing nothing but emitting negative emotions, negative energy, and that's not going to help you. I told this to a friend of mine recently, where when we constantly think about what we don't have, when, let's say, God or universe or whatever you want to call it, when they come to you to give you something, they look at you and think, this girl, this guy, this person is so ungrateful for what they have. They only focus on the things they don't have. Why should I give them more? I don't want to give them more. That's just how we lose a lot of things by thinking, oh, I don't have this, I don't have that. How about we think we have this, we have that? How can I make things better from where I am right now? And how can I make things better for others as well? It's not about you. It's not always about you. It's about being a part of a community, helping others, learning from each other. And I think instead of being envious and being jealous, think about how can we help each other out.
Yeah, and I think that comes from a thought where we think everyone else has it all figured out. They have a perfect life. And that's where this strive for perfection comes in. And that's been my Instagram bio for like ever since I had Instagram. I think from
Yeah, oh my God. Likita, you have to change it. Change it.
So yeah, that's been my bio for like I think what 8 years. I think like the moment I created my Instagram
Yeah, I remember
profile.
following you. I remember following you for the first time. It was like perfectionist with a procrastinator. No, procrastinator with a perfectionist complex. What is that?
No, it's perfectionist with a procrastinator complex. At that point, I didn't even know the depth of both of those words, and now I am both. I am
See,
literally
that's what
both.
I'm
It's almost
saying.
like I've
You become the person you say you are. So don't say negative things. Don't compare yourself.
Yeah, this is like a cue into our future episode on manifestation. I literally manifested myself into being a perfectionist with a procrastinator complex. That's exactly who I am. Yeah, so actually, perfectionism is actually a trauma response. I read this in one of the books that I read on CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, and it comes from feeling of never being accepted for, achieving some things. It can be your parents, your friends, your teachers. That feeling of shame that you get, when people say, okay, you can do a little bit more better. You could have gotten 100 on this easily. So it's all of that cumulatively that leads to us trying to be perfect in everything that we do so that we can minimize the shame that we feel. Suppose, let's say I have a presentation or something, and then I wanted to be perfect. I break my head over it, and only for me to feel less shame, which obviously I wouldn't, because it would have been really good if I hadn't broken my head over it. But yeah, it actually roots back to your childhood issues, which I can go on and on about. But this is where this perfectionism comes from, right? We're actually scared of rejection, scared of this shame, saying, from people if they say you're not good enough or things like that, which in reality will never happen. Nobody will come and tell you that you're not good enough. A very bad person might do that, but
Yeah, they
yeah, in
have.
general,
I
people,
have.
yeah.
Case in point, people have told me. I 100% agree with that. There's just no perfectionism doesn't exist. Have you seen the nature? Do you see perfection? Do you see like trees all lined up in the same shape and forms? Like, no way. Clouds are not in the same shapes and sizes and colors. Cloud keeps changing fucking colors every time. I'm like, how the fuck are you so beautiful every time you change colors? How is this even possible? But I think it's about realizing that you're a part of nature too. Like, I know this sounds like very woo woo, but it's not. We are all part of nature. We're all not supposed to be perfect. We're all different shapes and sizes and colors for a reason. It's to appreciate the beauty with what we have. It's to appreciate the differences, because without differences, if we all talk alike, look alike, think alike, same alike, how boring would life be? It's why, like, I think even in friendships and relationships, when you have conflicts, it helps you a little bit to learn about each other. Because if you're like, this is why I don't like first dates, because you're faking everything there. It's just like, oh, I am the perfect human, you cannot see a perfect human like me. And I think both parties know that they're not perfect. We all have like a closet of trauma and everything inside, we're just not ready to open it. But to realize that, to think that, and to take that step ahead, in each part of your life is so important. And stop comparing, stop thinking everyone is perfect. Nobody is perfect. Let me tell you that. Nobody is.
I think the biggest thing in life that we should do is build a better relationship with ourselves. Like, accept, like, it's life is all about self love, right? If you do that right, then I think everything else in life would fall into place. If
Yeah.
we really appreciated and loved ourselves, we wouldn't be comparing ourselves to everyone. We wouldn't have that pressure of, having it all figured out. You wouldn't tell your best friend or a child to get their shit together, to figure out what you want to do with your life. You wouldn't do that. So why shouldn't we do that with ourselves?
I think, like, with self love, add that and add self awareness to it. Knowing what triggers you, why it triggers you is also very important. I think we'll like do another episode on this, like how self love and how what we think about it, what our learnings are from what we've
Yeah,
implemented so
so
far.
what is self love? Everybody's talking about self love. We need to know what exactly it is.
For some people, face masks. For some people, it's wine. For some people, it's just sleeping. We'll discuss more about that in the future episode. But I think I want to talk
Yeah.
about, with perfectionism, I want to talk about like setbacks. When we feel like, oh, you know what, I thought I'll be in a better place, but I'm not. I'm in this position. I don't know what to do. Like, I feel like I'm in a rut or something. My favorite part is the hero's journey. I like thinking about heroes because in movies, whenever they have a problem, they're gonna figure it out. You'll be like, where is that moment when they figure stuff out? We're all gonna have that. We're all gonna have that. We're all heroes in our lives, heroes and heroines, and whatever you want to call it. I think we'll all have that moment. And it's like the tension building up to that moment. Enjoy the process, because you're not going to feel it again for at least a while. Because when you have stuff figured out, it's going to take time for it to go back into that dipping position and for it to come up. This is very stock market terms of me, but take into consideration the things that you're going through is helping you become the person that you want to be. And without all of these setbacks, you will not become the person you're supposed to be.
Yeah, and we were even just talking about how the thought of you even wanting to grow, or you even thinking about taking that next step towards becoming a better person, or okay, maybe I should figure out what my passion is, or something, that just the thought is the biggest step ever. Like, we should really appreciate ourselves to even think about personal growth or think about becoming a better person, because that's the biggest step. The
Yeah.
awareness is the biggest step.
You're listening to this podcast because you want to figure stuff out with us, and we're all trying to figure stuff out. But it's about, what, I understand that 20s is in transition. We're all transitioning constantly, and you taking the step to be a part of this journey itself is telling you that, damn, I'm trying to improve myself. A lot of people aren't. You may not notice that, maybe because I have a lot of friends. I surround myself with people that are actually growing themselves. But I've also noticed externally out of my circle where people are like, they're in the fixed mindset. They don't want to grow. The fact that you have a growth mindset is something you should be very proud of. And that actually, I want to talk about how we should celebrate our wins, right? You taking the step to become the person that you want to be. Take yourself out, buy a Starbucks or something, whatever makes you happy, because that's a huge ass win. And I don't think people realize that.
Yeah, I think it's a middle class mindset or something, always striving for the next goal, next goal, next goal, next goal. When you have achieved your first goal and you haven't, had a pat on your back or like, an appreciation, which we can give ourselves. We don't have to expect it from others. We can give ourselves, like, celebrate your small wins. Life is all about that, right? Like, once you achieve the first goal, obviously we all want to grow, we want to expand. What's the next thing? What's the next exciting thing? But look at where you are. You've achieved so much. I think we need to start celebrating that.
Yeah, I also think it ties back into perfectionism that we were talking about, right? Like when we don't get the compliment and the validation that we need from others, we tend to think that we don't deserve it. But that's not the case at all. You know how hard you worked, you know what you went through mentally and physically to get to that position. I have done this. I have looked back when I graduated, I didn't celebrate it. I looked back and I'm like, what the hell? Why didn't I celebrate that moment? And to me, that was such a huge realization that I think next. I need next. What's next? Give yourself a moment to appreciate the dopamine you're getting out of it. You don't even do that. That's the whole point of doing that is for dopamine. Why are you not celebrating it? Just kidding. You're not doing it for the dopamine. But I think to take a step back and realize that is so important because that will help you so much when you take the next step. Because when you don't celebrate it and you take the next step, you're going to feel like, what's the point of all of this? When you celebrate it, you will remember that moment. You'll be like, okay, I can celebrate myself the way I did back there. It gives you a little bit of motivation.
It's very tricky to find that balance between striving for more and being happy with where you are. It's very, very tricky, but I think it comes with practice, right? Being grateful for what you have, for what you've achieved, celebrating the goal that you've accomplished, but at the same time, striving for more, wanting to expand, reaching greater heights. It's something that even we are trying to figure out, right? We are our own biggest critique. Like, you are your biggest critique. You wouldn't want to settle. Why would you want to settle? You want to see yourself reach greater heights. And while that's true, we're still trying to figure out how we can find that balance. And
I think we're all trying to figure it out. We're not here with two mics to talk about how we have it all figured out. We are here because we're in the same boat as you, and
it's actually the opposite.
exactly. We're just like,
if you haven't figured out yet.
Yeah, this is a therapy session for us. We're all like best friends. Come on, guys. Let's just talk about this. What is this? It's like, I don't know, like we're doing long distance friendship. We're trying to figure stuff out. And we know that a lot of people are also on the same boat. And we're all trying to figure stuff out. Let's do it together. Nobody has it all figured out. Don't ever look at someone and think they have it all figured out. Go to their home, you'll see how they don't have it all figured out. Come to my place, you'll see how I don't have anything figured out. It is just what it is. We're both sitting in our home clothes, just like in a hair bun and a ponytail, and we're recording this. That's why we're not on video, because we know we're not perfect.
Oopsie. I mean, who even shows their imperfect sides on Instagram? Like, you're always supposed to show everything touched up and perfect. No, guys. No.
Yeah,
I think we should also start showing up homeless on Instagram. Actually, that's how we actually dress up, in our pajamas and shorts.
I mean, Likita is looking at me right now. She's never looked at me like this before. Because every time we go out, we're all dressed up. We have our lipstick on, we have our mascara on. But now she's looking at me. She's like, oh, this is how you actually look. Like, oh, God, damn, girl. But I think it takes a certain level of comfortness also. And to believe that you know who you are and that you don't care about what other people think. I don't think anybody's going to look at you and think, damn, she's ugly.
Oh, yeah. And all of this cumulatively roots to us thinking what other people will think of us, right? This topic of perfectionism, having it all figured out for whom? Whom? If you're the only audience, why would you care about it? You would be so happy with where you are. For whom? You're actually doing it for other people.
Yeah.
And once you stop giving a fuck, which I am trying to do, we are trying to do,
we are all trying to do,
you will peak in life, guys.
And I don't think you have to do it because people are going to say something. Do it because it makes sense to you. Do it because it makes sense to the people around you. And when I say that people around you, it doesn't mean, oh, my mom said this is what makes sense to her, so I'm going to do this. But does it make sense to you? I don't know. Just figure stuff out on your own timeline. Don't really care about anyone else. Just I would always say take suggestions, ask for feedback, but take what resonates and leave the rest.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, so focus on enjoying the process, right? Just take things one step at a time. Don't really stress yourself out. Be mindful. Just focus on not being stressed, because even at a young age, health problems are very, very obvious. It's happening. So be very mindful of that. Don't really put a lot of pressure on yourself. We're all gifted people. You're able to listen to a podcast. You're able to understand what I'm saying. Just think about that.
Yeah, That's something that I think about on a daily basis, to take things one day at a time. It makes so much sense. Worry about the 24 hours right now. It doesn't apply to everything, like I always say. If you have a deadline tomorrow, guys, you need to worry about tomorrow also. But the bigger picture is one day at a time.
100%. Listen, Anusha, this is what like they're saying.
Yeah, so basically, this whole episode has been a talk to ourselves, you and I, Anusha. It's also, I know a lot of people are listening to this, but I think
Thank you,
it's
guys.
more like a
Very
reassurance for
sweet.
ourselves. Yeah, and a slap on our head saying, "Wake up! This is the
Yeah.
truth."
Don't just preach, follow it.
Oh yeah, that's a note for us anyway.
Yeah.
And
With
with
that,
that, we've come to the end of this episode. Yeah, so go ahead and rate us, follow us, and send us a feedback. We're also going to attach this anonymous link. What was that?
It's
NGL?
NGL. Yep. So you can send anonymous feedback if you don't want like your name popping out on Spotify or Apple. Just feel free to send us an anonymous message because all we want is to hear from you guys and know what you think. We're very excited to see, but please don't like spam us saying, "Hey girls, what's up?" Like we're not gonna read that. Just being completely honest with you. We all know what it's like to be a girl, so please don't do that. Please be very respectful, and we will try and share those responses
Yeah,
on Instagram and answer
you know
those
who you
questions.
are. If you're listening to this, try and be respectful, guys. I know a lot of you have popped in my DMs. Don't do this shit. Please. It's very difficult for girls to put themselves out on the internet. And please be respectful. Thanks.
Thank you, and we will see you in the next episode. Bye.
Thank you for listening. We are very grateful. Bye bye.